I'm Neal Katyal, and this is The New Normal, a digital salon where we talk about life in the age of COVID-19. And today we're talking about collaboration and creativity across distance. COVID-19 has obviously upended how we work and collaborate. And today we're joined by two of the best possible guests you could have to talk about this with you. First up is Adam Grant. He's a professor at Wharton. He's written 4 New York Times best-selling books. The first one, called Give and Take, is probably the only book I've ever bought 50 copies of to give to essentially everyone I know because it was so brilliant and path-breaking. Adam is rumored to be the most popular professor in Wharton's history, and for good reason. You'll see he has a combination of smarts and humor and insight and even academic ideas as well, layered all this in. And indeed, he's the only person I think who I really take regular advice from almost on a daily basis from his Twitter and Instagram posts and things like that. So good to see you, Adam.
You too, Neal. I look forward to not living up to any of that.
And second, we've got Stewart Butterfield. Stewart is the founder and the CEO of Slack, one of the greatest collaborative companies in the world today. He is a visionary founder and leader. And a lot of people don't know this about you, Stewart, but you're not someone who, had this handed to you. You grew up, as I understand it, in a log cabin. You had no running water or electricity. Learned to teach yourself code, founded several companies, the most recent of which is Slack. And it is just a real honor and privilege to have you here as well, Stewart.
Thank you so much, Neal. Appreciate it.
So, both of you are dear friends and dear friends of each other. So I think that makes this even more interesting. But, let me just start by just asking you, Adam, this is such a weird time. How are you handling COVID in your intense work and family life?
I just feel lucky that we're all healthy and safe is, I guess, my first reaction. My second reaction is I've become BBC dad, just like all of the rest of us. And I think we'll probably have at least 2 interruptions over the course of this conversation. But I've been working from home mostly for about 15 years. And so the change has been less me. I don't travel, obviously, now. But it's been more having our kids home throughout the day is different for me. So all things considered, things are pretty good here.
And Stewart, for you, man, I can't imagine but what you're dealing with both at home, but at Slack as well, as this kind of COVID thing ramps up everything.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I think that I've also spent a lot of time talking to other CEOs, and if there's one common thread, it's never waste a crisis. So it's against the backdrop of such great change. All other changes seem much less consequential or much less scary. And so this is a great, for some people, it's a reorg that they've been sitting on for the last 6 months because they're worried about how people are going to react. For other people, it's, and we've tried to do this as much as possible, use it as a time to critically reevaluate how we run meetings, how we do performance reviews, how we prioritize projects, how we give feedback, all of those things, because partly you have to, because the conditions are so different, and partly because I think the change, as as terrible as the drivers are, it opens up people for more or less anything else. So that could be positive, it could be negative, it could be neutral, but there's, I think, inside most humans a pretty strong instinct to help that comes out in times like these. And so if people feel like they can be of service, it's a huge opportunity and shouldn't be squandered.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about that kind of collaboration at this point over distance. I'm a guy, I have 15 amazing lawyers who work for me, and I think my great superpower is just aggregating them, going into the office and learning from them and pushing us all each other in a physical environment to just learn from at the lunch table in the hallway and things like that. And I'm finding myself really struggling with how to do that virtually. Do you have some thoughts?
Welcome to the club. It's good to know we're not alone. One of my mentors in organizational psychology, Richard Hackman, spent literally half a century studying teams, largely because he hated working with other people. And so he figured out that instead of having to do it, he could study it. And he studied teams in the intelligence industry. He studied orchestras, airline cockpit crews, basketball teams. And one of his major findings was that teams are like amplifiers. Whatever you put in comes out louder. And I think being virtual is another amplifier. So I think for everyone, all the things that were difficult before, whether it's communication or coordination or collaboration, that's gotten even more challenging now. I think one of the things I would say, Neal, is actually something that Stewart's been facilitating through the whole time that he's been leading Slack, which is we need to make sure that we're able to get in touch with each other, not just throughout the week, but at the same time. There's some research by Anita Woolley and her colleagues on what's called burstiness, which is the feeling that an interaction or collaboration is literally bursting with energy and ideas. And it turns out that when you're not physically in the same place as other people, one of the ways you create burstiness is just being online at the same time. So everybody's on one Slack channel, you can see the messages coming in. And if you study software teams that are working remotely, when they get that bursty pattern, they're more productive and they're more creative. And I always thought it was because they could build on each other's ideas. But Anita and her colleagues find a different mechanism at play, which is it's motivating to know that other people are there responding to you. And that actually helps your own engagement. Stewart, I'd love to hear your take on that because you've been watching this happen in real time.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that exact angle before, but obviously it rings true. Just I was reading something. I'm not a huge sports fan, but I was reading about the likelihood of sports coming back with spectatorless arenas and how hard that would be for the athletes, just because you feed off the energy. And certainly, I enjoy playing music. I haven't done it as much as I did when I was younger, but that improvisational context where you have several people and there's kind of like unseen interactions, the same thing happens maybe with a slightly extended timescale in design collaborations, in software engineering, but I think more or less any creative endeavor. And I think the signal that we get from the reactions of other people is such important guidance in formulating our own thoughts and how we're articulating them, that it's really hard to do it without that.
Stewart, tell just for someone ignorant, explain how technology can help down this burstiness thing. How is it that Slack or any other product is different from just, me emailing my brief to my team and they commenting on it or something like that?
So I should say that, there's real value in asynchronous communication too, and people being able to pick it up when they have a chance. And there's that's an advantage that email, or in some cases Slack, has over, say, a phone call, where it demands that you're paying attention at exactly the same moment as I am. Again, because I hadn't thought about it with that frame, I don't know that there's features that I would have said at the time were specifically designed to support burstiness, but there's a lot that we do to try to give those subtle social signals, and things as little as saying so-and-so is typing. So in Slack, it'll say Neal's typing, it'll say Neal and Adam are typing, and if there's, I think, 3 or more people, it just says several people are typing, which ended up being the name of our blog. So there's that kind of indication, but there's also the opportunity to give a little bit of feedback in a way that is not demanding or taxing, and that's emoji reactions. I think long before Slack, Facebook had the thumbs up like sign, and we realized we had, there's 800 and whatever emojis in the standard set at that time. We should just give people the whole vocabulary. And medium blue square is not especially evocative, but there's people invent their own kind of language in response. Things like putting the eyeball emojis means I'm looking at this as kind of a neutral, dispassionate, checking it out. There's the subtle differences between a thumbs up and a green background with a white check mark, and the raised hands emoji, and the pray hands emoji, and the bow emoji.
You don't want to.
It becomes like really useful signal for people to interact, and not be like overly taxing or demanding.